Next week, New Tuesday kicks off with an all-new Buffy. Now at its new, earlier time. There's a beast on the loose in Sunnydale.
Thought I heard something.
But this time, the angel Buffy knew is not there to protect her. And there's a deadly secret that will keep the Slayer from slaying.
It's gonna keep coming after me.
An all-new Buffy the Vampire Slayer, next Tuesday.
Hello, yo, and welcome to this week's edition of Slade, the Buffyverse Revisited. I'm one of your hosts, I'm Jeremy.
I'm your other host, James.
And this week, we will be lollygagging into Season 2, Episode 15, Phases.
Yes, lollygagging like a werewolf through the forest.
Exactly.
Lollygagging.
You know how we are. We lollygag these episodes, you know.
We don't though. I looked at our last few episode times, and we're coming in at hour 30, hour 40 since we came back for the back half of the season. So
I think it's flowing a little better now. Why don't if anybody out there agrees or disagrees, let us know for sure.
Yeah.
I felt like maybe we were, the first half of this podcast, I kind of felt like maybe we were being a little too long-winded, I think. And
I mean, it depends on how you look at it too.
Certain episodes I think kind of call for that, and we need to get deep into that meat. And
I'm also a fan of long form podcasts too. Myself,
I am too, definitely. I
think what we've been doing the last this back half of episodes for this season has been working. So, that's
all right then. So what anybody else thinks doesn't mean shit.
Yeah, fuck you all. No. That being said, how about if I serve up some tasty dates and deets?
Yes, please do, with extra garlic.
I broiled these this week. Yeah.
All right, let's have these.
As previously stated, we will be revisiting Buffy the Vampire Slayer Season 2, Episode 15, the 27th episode of the series overall, Phases. Our episode director this week is Bruce Seth Green, and our episode credited writers are Dean Batali and Rob Des Hotel. Our original air date was January 27th, 1998 on the now defunct WB network. Our regular cast, as always, includes Sarah Michelle Gellar as Buffy, Nicholas Brennan as Xander, Allison Hannigan as Willow, Charisma Carpenter as Cordelia, David Boreanaz as Angel, and Anthony Stewart Head as Giles. Our guest stars this week include Seth Green as Oz, Jack Conley as Kane, Larry Bagby as Larry Blasdell, and Megan Perry as Teresa Glustmeyer. Our episode synopsis this week reads, Buffy protects a werewolf from a poacher. Willow becomes interested in Oz, much to Xander's dismay.
That is so wrong. She's been interested in Oz for several episodes now. That's so incorrect.
Yeah.
My synopsis reads, Buffy and her friends discover secrets about themselves as they battle a werewolf, its hunter, and their own emotions. Vague, very vague.
Very vague.
But less wrong than yours. Why don't you take us into that cold open, James, and let's see what's going on up in this bitch.
We open with Willow meeting up with Oz in front of one of the school's trophy cases, and he's kind of he's checking out one of the cheerleading statues, and it is, of course, the cheerleading statue that Amy's mother from the episode The Witch has been trapped in, and he makes a comment to her about how the eyes just kind of follow you back and forth, and he likes it. It's pretty cool. They talk about their date the previous night, and it gets a little awkward before Willow spots Buffy and dismisses herself from Oz and walks outside with Buffy, and they're outside having a conversation, and Willow's worried because Oz hasn't tried to make any sort of a move on her yet. Even though she's happy that he's being nice and respectful.
But she's moist, and she needs some of that you know what.
Wow. We then later that night, Xander and Cordelia are making out in her daddy's car, which is parked up at Lover's Lane, and without warning, well, no, they're hold on a minute, sorry.
Yeah, you're getting a little ahead, buddy.
Yeah, I am ahead of myself. So they're making out, and he's going on about Oz and Willow, and she's laying into him about always either going on about Willow or Buffy, or been never being present in the moment, and they keep making out, and Xander stops, and he thinks he hears something, and but they kind of brush it off, and then as they're making out again, they hear something else and stop, and Xander says he definitely heard something that time, and they at that point or did I am I past the cold open?
Yeah, you're
Am I past the cold open now? Hold on.
Yeah, the cold open ends with them finishing talking, and they
okay.
out, and then you see some type of creature is watching them from
it cuts to a view from the woods, and you see some creature is watching them,
and that's cold open.
Yeah, my note pages were screwed up, but so
before we go any further, I want to jump back a little bit to that opening scene with Oz. First of all, why didn't, when he explains the statue thing to Willow, why didn't she just say, oh yeah, like there was this fucking crazy witch bitch, and Buffy fucking, we put her into that statue. That's why, because those really are eyes following you.
Probably because it wasn't necessary.
Okay. Well, he was so fucking intrigued with it, I'd be like, oh yeah, there's a story behind that. Anyway.
Also, if I remember back to the witch correctly, they don't know that she's trapped in there.
Oh, I thought you're right, because they like vanquished her or whatever. Yeah, I think you're right. They don't realize she is in that fucking thing.
Right.
Which they totally should have brought her back like many seasons later and been like, you motherfuckers have had me trapped in this fucking this fucking trophy for years. I'm killing you all. My other thing is, I just wanted to bring up that, well, now I'll skip it. But basically, just I don't understand. Like, this takes me back to the whole thing with Oz, that I think he's a drug addict. Remember, in the very first episode we ever meet Oz, I'm like, he's a drug addict, because he's sitting there just mesmerized by that plate of canapes, and he's just
right.
Well, now he's just completely mesmerized by this fucking statue. So yeah, he's definitely a pothead at the very least.
But I mean, in defense of that, like, you've never looked at a picture and like thought the eyes followed you around the room, so you've just kind of done one of these.
Well, yeah, but I mean, he's standing there, he's just, I don't know, he takes it to another level, But anyway, go on, sir.
That's it. That's the cold open.
Oh no, go ahead. You go a little bit more there. I mean, kind of finish up this whole, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So we come back, and we're still inside Cordy's dad's car, and her and Xander are making out, and Xander thinks he hears something, and Cordy's like, you didn't hear anything. Do you even want to be here? Blah blah blah, and they go back to making out, and they hear something again, like a twig snapping or something like that, and they stop kissing, and Xander's like, okay, I definitely heard something that time. And Cordy's like, you know what? How about if I just take you home? And at that point, a hairy arm with clawed hand punches through the top of the car.
And a cigarette, because it's Tammy.
And she's like, hi, my new friends. How are you?
Listen, I ain't shaved in a while. Give me a break, all right?
So Cordelia screams and she goes to grab the keys and she fumbles them and drops them. And Xander's yelling, get us out of here. And the thing on the roof is thrashing its arm around and snarling. And Cordy finally gets the keys in the ignition and they drive off. And we cut to school the next day where Buffy's examining the car. And what's going on there?
Well, first, I do want to jump back. I'm sorry to do this again, but I've got to jump back to that cold open again because I forgot to mention this. There was a brief scene in there where Willow was complaining, to Buffy about Oz not trying to kiss her. You talked about it. You talked about the part. Oh, I forgot to mention that. I wanted to bring up. There's a point where Willow says she's talking about Xander, and she says, "Well, we should call him." And she's like, "What's his number?" "Oh, I know. It's 1-800 I'm dating a skanky hoe." And I was like, "Whoa, Willow with the claws." But yeah, so she considers Cordelia a skanky hoe. I found that amusing. Anyway, so yeah, we go back and they're examining the car, and Giles points out that there's been quite a number of attacks recently, but so far only animals had been mauled and what have you, eaten. But they're all pretty much in agreement that it's definitely a werewolf, and that really excites Giles because he's like, "Oh, it's one of the classics," and they're all just like, "The fuck?" And he's like, "Yeah, me and my books are we're in for a fun evening." And he just kind of leaves all jolly and happy, and Buffy's like, "He needs a pet." And then we cut to now this part of my notes got a little screwy. These next two scenes. I believe the next scene is in the gym class, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, we cut to the gymnasium, and
I'm sorry, just briefly to cut back to the scene where they're examining the roof on Cordy's car. We also find out that the idea that werewolves only come out on the night of the full moon is probably not accurate because last night was the night before the full moon.
Right. And that's something I appreciate about this episode because, well, and how Buffy the Buffyverse treats werewolves in general, because as you all know, I am a werewolf fanatic. And I think the best stories have always been that, just like they do it here, the day before, the day of, and the day after the full moon is your werewolf cycle. And they generally say, on the day of the full moon is when they're at their peak power. So yeah, I enjoyed that. So we cut to the gymnasium, and for some reason the female gym teacher is apparently an expert in self-defense. Also, she's teaching them self-defense, and prior to that, though, they get up, or she tells them she's going to, teach them these self-defense moves and blah blah blah, and they get split up into groups, and Larry runs into Xander, and he's got this big huge bandage on his arm, and Xander's like, what's up with that? And Larry's like, oh yeah, this huge fucking dog jumps out of this bush and just bit the shit out of me. What do you say he had get 39 stitches? I think he said.
Yeah, 38 or 39, something like that.
Yeah. And I'm like, 39 stitches? You would be in the fucking hospital, like getting fucking blood transfusion. But anyway, so yeah, this big dog tore into him, and then Oz kind of walks up and he's like, oh yeah, I feel your pain, and he holds up his finger. And he's got this little bitty bite mark, and he's like, "My little cousin just got his baby teeth in, and he doesn't like to be tickled." And Larry's like, "Oh, that's so not on my level, dude." Just kind of broods away, and then Larry immediately starts sexually harassing a girl named Teresa. Or no, it's not Teresa. I'm sorry. It's a different girl.
No, it's Teresa.
Is it Teresa?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I thought I was misremembering. Yeah. He immediately starts sexually harassing Teresa and about how they're going to be in a group together and blah, blah, blah. And then Buffy's like, "Yeah, I'm in your group too." And he's like, "Oh, fuck. She's already beat me up once." And then Willow's like, "Buffy, remember, you got to be like a weak, dainty little thing like the rest of us girls." And so then there's a point where Larry gets her Buffy from behind, and Buffy's supposed to try to flip him off, and she's like going, I can't do it, pretending to be weak. And then Larry gets super gross, and he's like, "Ooh, Summers, you're turning me on," and just gets a handful of ass, at which point she Slayer throws him over her shoulder onto his fucking face, breaks his neck, and he passes away. And that's the end of Larry.
We never see Larry again.
We never see, well, we see him at the funeral because they go to the funeral, No, but flips him off of her, and yeah, pretty much that's how she handles that situation. Then we cut to the library, and it's a little bit later in the day. And after some research, Giles finds out that this is where he has found out that a werewolf is a wolf for the 3 nights, meaning the night before the full moon night, and the night after. And the coming night is the full moon. So the night before was the night before the full moon. So
thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, Jeremy, for that astute observation and narrowing that time frame down for us.
I wanted to nail that time frame down for everybody who was curious. So they're talking about what they should do, and Buffy's pretty much like, well, they're all pretty much in agreement that this person is a human for 28 days out of each month, and they might not even know that they're a werewolf, so we can't kill it. And so Buffy's like, all right, then tonight we'll bring it back alive. A, to keep it from killing people, and B, to apparently wait for it to transform back into whoever it is, so they can find out who the wolf is. So that night, Giles and Buffy are patrolling Lover's Lane, where Cordy and Xander were earlier in the episode. Of course, there's cars parked everywhere and high school kids making out, and Buffy and
one really old couple. It was kind of disturbing.
Yeah, I didn't know. I kept going back with the rewind, the thing. And I was like, I didn't know if they were like supposed to be old, or they didn't have anybody else to play high school kids, so they got a couple.
They just couldn't get olds. Right, they couldn't get any like 30-year-olds that looked like high school kids, so they got like 40-year-olds that looked 60.
Yeah, I mean, like the one was fucking like looking at his social security check, and I don't know, it was weird. It was really weird. But anyway, they run into each other, and Giles is like, they're kind of whispering, and Giles is like, "Well, did you find anything?" And Buffy's like, "Yeah, so and so is making out with so and so, but he's going out with so and so," and Giles just looks at her like, and she's like, "Oh, yeah, no, nothing, no wolf." And Giles wants to go around and start knocking on windows and asking people if they've seen anything. And so Buffy just looks at him like he's got steaming turds hanging out of his mouth. And she's like, "Giles, no one here has seen anything." And he's like, he kind of gets it. He kind of catches on. He's like, yeah, okay, you're right. So they split up again and continue hunting for said wolf. And Buffy walks into a little bit of a clearing area there, and wham, gets caught by one of those fucking like 80s Rambo movie nets that swallows her up and pulls her up into the tree. And this guy jumps out of the bushes, and he's got a double-barreled shotgun with a scope on it, which I've never seen. I'm not a gun expert by any means, but I've never seen a double-barreled shotgun with a scope on it, but that's what he's got. And he's pointing it at her, and he's like, "Gotcha!" And we cut to what would have been a commercial, a cliffhanger, if you will. When we come back, what happens, James?
Hold on. Let me find my place in my notes here.
I'll keep up. I'll keep going. It's cool.
Okay, sorry.
We discover this man's name is Kane. And Giles immediately asks how his brother is. and no.
And this dude's like, I fucking killed him years ago.
Yeah. He's like, I murdered that fucker. I mean, what you know? Anyway, so he realizes Buffy's not the fucking wolf, so he cuts her down, and then this fucking creepoid immediately thinks that Buffy and Giles are a couple, and he's like, oh hey, that's fine, I understand. Get the fruit while it's fresh. And Giles is ready to fucking go for his throat and kill him. And
I honestly I loved this scene because of Giles's reaction.
Oh yeah, he from the Jump Street, he does not like this guy.
Yeah.
For good reason.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, we're hunting werewolves, and he laughs. And
I love that too. Like Buffy's just straight up with him about it.
Yeah,
She's
like why? At this point, you're in Sunnydale. Like everybody knows that there's fucking insane monsters in there. You know.
Yeah.
And he thinks it's funny, and because reveals that he is actually a werewolf hunter himself. And he's got this necklace on with all these teeth, and he's like, see these? I pull one of these out of the mouth of every werewolf I kill. And he's like, and when I kill this one tonight, that'll make number 12. And long story short, he does this because he likes to skin them for their pelts. And apparently they're worth a lot of money in Sri Lanka, which this guy really looks like he's been to fucking Sri Lanka.
Yeah.
Like, I bet he can't even spell Sri Lanka, but
anyway. He's the kind of guy that, like, once he found out werewolves were real, he stopped hunting Bigfoot. That's this guy.
Exactly. This is basically Caleb from Mountain Men.
Yes!
That's a little inside baseball for me and James there. But I hate your woman. Anyway, so he let's see. So yeah, he's packing up, getting ready to go to continue on his hunt. And he's like, do you know anywhere else that kids like this congregate? And they're like, why? And he's like, because that's why the werewolf always shows up, because he's drawn by sexual heat, he says. So they're like, no, I'm sorry, can't help you. And he's like, sure. So he goes on his way. He does, and he says the werewolf can sense this collection of sexual heat from miles away. So Buffy actually knows where to look, and she's like, come on, Giles, let's go. I know where to look. And she goes, hopefully we can get there before Mind Furrier gets there. And I was like, lol. So then we cut to Teresa again.
Yes.
And she's now
she's walking home from somewhere, and
it looks like from school, maybe, because she's got like her books in her arm, but it's also like 9:00 at night.
Right.
Well, she just went to the library because remember they don't close till 8.
That's true. She was dismayed that the librarian wasn't there to check her out.
Yeah, they're open till 8, but Giles is literally never there, ever.
No. Only during school hours and after school hours when the script calls for it.
Right. But the library is not open at that time.
Right. And she hears some rustling and some bushes and overgrown grass, and kind of looks around but doesn't see anything, and she keeps going. And we cut to a view of her from the other side of the fence where she was just looking, and she stops and looks around again because she hears more rustling, and we hear something let out a low growl, and
It's just Tammy, and she's burping.
Yeah, Tammy's like, sorry.
Sorry, honey.
You got a light?
Yeah, she never has a light. She always has a cigarette, but she never has a light.
Right. So
she's like, you got a match, and Teresa's like, dude, it's 1998. Get a fucking Bic.
And so we hear something give out a low growl, and Teresa decides it's time to run, and so she turns and gets ready to take off, and bam, slams right into Angel.
Who's playing with a tiny little flower.
He's got a little daisy in his hand, and he's twirling it around, and he asks her if everything's okay, and she's like, I thought I heard something behind me, and he walks behind her and looks around and turns back to her, and he's like, no, there's nothing there. And she says, I guess I was wrong. And
he's like, I guess you were. And then he punches her, and he's like, I ain't walking you home because you're dumb.
Yeah, you're stupid.
And then he eats the flower and
and skips off. Like, it's really weird.
Skips away.
I was like,
weird.
what?
Yeah, I was like, she's got like a black eye and shit. He's
right.
just assaulted a female. Yeah,
right. I was like, they are really taking the evil Angel in a really weird direction. I don't know.
Yeah.
No, he.
I think we need to clarify. No, that didn't actually happen.
That didn't actually happen. He tells her, it's okay. It can get pretty scary out here all alone at night, and then he's like, don't I know you from somewhere? Do you go to school with Buffy? And she's like, oh, you know Buffy? And he's like, yeah, I know Buffy. Come on, I'll get you home. And I
just boned her a couple weeks ago. Yeah, I know her.
I boned her on a Buffy 2-night event.
Oh shit.
So they walk off together, and then we cut to the Bronze, and I'll let you take the Bronze scene here, Jeremy. What's going on at the Bronze?
Well, there's a band playing, there's lots of kids, and lots of sexual heat. Oh, I forgot. I'm sorry, because I didn't have this scene, but I forgot to mention earlier when we saw. Yeah, baby. Yeah. Uh-huh. It's that. Yeah. This is happening. Anyway.
No joke. When I was commuting every day to work, when I would get on the train and put my headphones in so that train people wouldn't talk to me, that was literally the first song on I would play every day.
Really?
On the train, yeah, to kind of get me going for the day.
Get you in the mood of having to deal with weird, creepy fucking people all day. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, lots of kids, lots of sexual heat. And Cordelia is bitching to Willow about Willow, more or less. I got a clip. I got a clip, so let's just play this.
I mean, with Xander, it's always Buffy did this, Willow said that, Buffy, Willow. It's like I don't even exist.
I sometimes feel like that.
And then when I call him on it, he acts all confused, like I'm the one with the problem.
His do I smell something look.
All a part of his little guy games. It's like he's there, but then he's not there, and he wants it, but then he doesn't want it.
He's so busy looking around at everything he doesn't have, he doesn't even realize what he does have.
Well, he should at least realize that you have Oz.
I'm not sure I do. Oz and I are in some sort of holding pattern, except without the holding, or anything else.
What's he waiting for? What's his problem? Oh, that's right, he's a guy.
Yeah, him and Xander, guys.
What do they think they are?
A couple of guys.
Right when she says couple of guys, all of a sudden...
Hold on. Before you go on,
yeah.
since we're bitching about... Since the girls are having a little coffee clutch about Xander here, I want to say, and I was going to mention it earlier, but I'll bring it up now. I hate everything about Xander in this fucking episode.
Right. Oh, I got all kinds to bring up shortly.
I hate everything about him.
Yep.
He's jealous of Oz. There's a scene
when he's never had any interest in Willow until she finds Oz.
He's made it fucking clear time and time and time again. He's not interested in dating Willow, and now he's got a problem with Oz. There's a scene coming up when it comes up.
There is several.
I will definitely jump in on that scene, and I hate the fact, and it's pretty much only in this scene. I hate the fact that we even have this brief glimpse of mopey, piney for Xander Willow.
I know.
And it is in just this scene with Cordelia, but it irritates the hell out of me.
I know, because I'm like, oh, don't you see him for the douche that he is?
Right. Plus, you have Oz now.
Right. The coolest guy in the fucking show.
Literally the coolest. And I'm an Angel fan, and I think Oz is the coolest guy on the show.
Exactly. So anyway, as they're talking, just as Willow says, "Yeah, guys," all of a sudden, I just found this hilarious for some reason. The werewolf literally drops in to the bronze from like the skylight above and lands on the coffee table in front of Willow and Cordelia.
Doesn't break the coffee table.
No.
Doesn't break the coffee table, even though he's ascended or descended from a phenomenal height.
And he's supposedly, I don't know, he's a werewolf, 6'5", a few hundred pounds. No, he just lands right on the coffee table like a gymnast, and everything's fine. And of course, they start screaming. Everybody starts screaming. Everybody's losing their minds, and they start pouring out of the bronze. And just then, Giles and Buffy are pulling up, and they're like, "Yep." Giles is like, "Yep, you were right. This must be the place."
Okay, before you go on,
Mm-hmm.
did you notice when Giles? So I've started paying really close attention to scenes now because you keep pulling out like random signs and shit. So I'm literally watching like this. Just to see what I can pull out. When Buffy and Giles pull up in Giles' car, you can see people pushing the car.
Oh, really?
From behind. Yeah.
Oh shit, I didn't look for that.
Yes, go back and watch it. You can see their heads, the top of their heads like through the front windshield and out the back. And they're clearly pushing the car.
Oh, that's awesome. That is because that happens all the time in shows, but it's rare that they fuck up and you see it.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, I'm gonna go back and look for that because you know me, I love seeing fuck ups. So, but anyway, yeah. So she jumps out of his car and runs on inside the bronze and slams the door shut behind her, and it's deserted. And it's quiet, and she's not seeing the wolf, so she's lurking around trying to find it, and eventually it presents itself. And they have a total kung fu fight. Like the fucking werewolf immediately goes into the crane technique position, and she runs in. No, that
Speaking of crane technique, have you watched season 5 yet?
Of course.
Okay, we'll talk about it later.
Yeah. So they fight a bit. She throws a chain and wraps it around his neck because their whole thing is to catch it a lot, catch it and take it back. Well, it gets loose from that, and it runs and jumps through a plate glass window and escapes. So Giles comes in and is like, "You let it get away," and he just straight up shoots Buffy, dude, because he's so fucking pissed for letting that wolf get away.
Yeah.
I mean, he just fucking shoots her, right? And it's a gut shot, so it's going to be a slow, painful death.
Yeah, and she's just bleeding out on the floor, and
Yeah.
Giles attacks Kane, and Kane pulls a Bowie knife out of his boot and just he slams it into the Giles's lower sternum and then rakes it upwards.
And here's the funny thing is we hadn't even said that Kane was even there yet.
Right.
But anyway, so Kane is there now, by the way. And it's Kane, Buffy, people milling around. They're kind of checking out the situation. And he's like, you let it get away. And she's, they argue because she was going to lock it up. And of course, he wants to kill it. And then he says, oh, the great line of, well, that's what happens when you let a woman try to do a man's job. And I'm like, oh, God, here we go. And they go back and forth a bit. And Giles comes up and is basically like, why don't you fuck off, dude? And he's like, great. First they tell me I can't hunt an elephant for its ivory anymore. And now I got to deal with people for the ethical treatment of werewolves. Which I'm like, dude, we should totally start that group.
We should.
But anyway,
werewolf lives matter.
That's right. Kane fucks
WLM.
off. Kane fucks off, and then Buffy and Giles bail too. And we cut to an alley there that must be somewhat close to the bronze there. And the wolf is still roaming around, and he spots a blood trail, and he's smelling it. And he follows it and comes up on the dead Teresa, who is now dead and has been eaten. And there's Angel, and he's in full vamp face. And so they're growling and snarling at each other. And then Angel kind of smiles and sinks back into the shadows and disappears. And the wolf's like, well, fuck, I'm not going to leave a good meal. So he just eats her, every bit of her. I mean, down to he eats even her clothes. There's nothing left of Teresa. Nothing. Her parents will have nothing to bury. No,
which makes
which
it
would make
even
sense.
Weirder. It would make sense, but it also makes the next scene really weird when we hear over the radio about how they found Teresa's body.
Right. But I'm always like, wait, why would a wolf, this wild creature, leave a fresh kill that it could eat? I don't know. Maybe it could sense the taint of the vampire in it. I don't know. Anyway, I think maybe I'm overthinking this, as I often do. So anyway, then we cut to back to the Lover's Lane area. It's still that same night, and it's pretty early in the morning, not too far from daylight. And Buffy comes walking up to Giles' car, but Giles isn't in there. And she's like, oh, fuck. And she's like, Giles. And then he raises up. He had been slumped over, fucking sleeping. And so she immediately beats the shit out of him for falling asleep. I mean, beats the brakes off of him.
Mm-hmm.
And she gets in the car and they're talking. And then they hear on the radio that the cops had found the body of Teresa Klusmeyer, age 17, Sunnydale High School student, blah, blah, blah. And they connect it with the animal mutilations they'd been seeing recently. And that's when Giles is like, well, it's nearly sunrise, so let's just call it a night. And, fuck it. Anybody else gets murdered, it's not on us. And Buffy's like, yeah, fuck this place. Let's roll. They go have some beers. But, no, there's we cut to, it's now fully the sun has fully come up, and I don't know why, dude, but I had to keep rewinding this because it was just making me laugh. The werewolf was laying, like on its back in the woods there, asleep, but there was something about it that just looked hilarious. Because the costume with him like laying on his back and his snout sticking up, it looked kind of like roadkill, like somebody hit a deer at the side of the road.
Right. I mean, it doesn't help. Like the mouth was hanging wide open.
Yes.
on the suit. Like,
yeah, I just kept rewinding it. I was like, this is hilarious.
Like they could have at least like sewn the mouth shut for that scene or something.
Yeah.
But it's literally like laying there like.
Yeah, like roadkill.
Yeah.
Like somebody hit a deer and stop and like, well, fuck, let me drag it off the road. But anyway, yeah, it's laying there and it's asleep, and it begins to revert to its human form. And who do we see? Who is it, James? Who is the werewolf?
It's Oz.
Oh my God, it's Oz? I thought it was Larry.
Nope.
No. It's Oz.
Not Larry.
Oz is the werewolf, and he wakes up and he kind of looks. He's naked, obviously, and he wakes up and he looks around and he's obviously like, "Where the fuck am I at?" And he doesn't say anything, but you can tell he's like, "What the hell?" He raises up and looks around, and he just goes, "Huh." And that's the end of the scene. That's just, I love Oz. I love the way he's written in this show.
Yeah.
So the next scene we cut to Oz. He's at his house, and he's on the phone, the old cordless phone, might I add. He's really living in the future, and he he says, "Hey, Aunt Maureen. Hey, so I was just wondering, is Jordy a werewolf?" and he goes, "Huh, okay. So how long's that been going on?" And then she apparently says whatever she says, and he goes, "Oh, no reason. Yeah, I was just wondering. Give my love to Uncle Ken." And he hangs up. So apparently his little baby cousin somehow is a werewolf. And when said little baby cousin bit his finger, he has now made Oz a werewolf. I find that whole thing funny and weird.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, Aunt Maureen, is your toddler a werewolf? Oh, he is. Oh, okay. But anyway, Oz has had no idea that he himself was a werewolf, let alone the one that they were all looking for. So now he's probably, like, knowing that the Slayer is, I'd probably fucking leave town if it were me. I'd be like, fuck this. That bitch is going to kill me. Because, nope, I'm leaving. I am getting out of town.
Yeah.
So we cut to school, and he's walking through the halls, and you can tell he's just kind of in shock. Everything looks weird, and he's just like, man, what am I going to do? And Buffy and Willow and Giles are in the library, and Buffy's like, she's pacing around. She says, I can't believe I let that thing get away. I should have killed it when I had the chance. And Oz walks in right as she says that, and he's like, killed what? And Giles is like, oh, the werewolf. And Oz is like, okay, I gotta go. And he leaves town right then. And we never see Oz again, ever.
Never.
And
it's sad, really, because we liked the character a lot.
We did, but he's like, fuck this, I'm not getting killed. No, so he's like, oh shit, did anybody get bit or scratched? And they're like, no, but Teresa got fucking offed. And he's like, fuck her, dude, I don't even like her. As long as nobody I know got bit. And they're like,
he's
right.
Like, well, he's like, I'm glad I killed her. And then they're all like, what?
You mean you? And he's like, what? I didn't say that.
What?
I said I'm glad Haim killed her. Haim is my friend in another class.
He's he actually goes to another school. You guys don't know him.
You guys
I'm pretty sure he's the werewolf.
So anyway, yeah, he's obviously bothered by the Teresa thing. And so yeah, Buffy's like, well, we're gonna find it tonight. And he's like, oh shit, it's gonna be around another night. So obviously he's just now finding out. He's like, fuck, I'm gonna be the werewolf again. And then explain the three night thing to him then. And then she's like, yeah, and I'm gonna give that Wolfie something to howl about this time. And that's when he really leaves town, because he's like, dude, I am like 4'8", okay, and this bitch has Slayer powers. I'm out. I'm out of this.
Peace. Willow, it's been fun. Sorry I didn't hit. I'm outie.
I'm out. Deuces. And he gets in the van and rolls out. No, so Xander starts talking about, well, the group starts talking about, who the fuck could it be? Who the fuck could it be? And Xander's like, it's obviously fucking Larry. The dog bite thing, the excessive back hair, etc. And they're like, okay. And he's like, well, I'm going to go talk to him. and and I'm gonna find out. And they're like, okay. And Oz is just kind of spaced out, and Giles tells Willow to this just kills me. Giles tells Willow to check the student files and see if anyone else, quote, fits the profile. And I'm like, fits the profile.
Right.
Are there any students in this school who could unknowingly be a werewolf? Because if so, by looking through the student files, we will discover someone who fits that profile.
Right. And not to mention, this is the finding someone that fits the profile is after they've already discussed how they shouldn't kill the werewolf because that person is a human being 23 other days out of the month
that probably doesn't know that they're a werewolf.
Exactly. Yeah. Which would heavily imply that person probably isn't an aggressive person in their human form.
And I'm just like, what the fuck? What profile? What is the werewolf profile? What do we look for? Drooling, right. Large teeth, right. Barking, howling.
Right.
So anyway, Willow's like, okay, so she's going to start doing that on the computer. Giles has another idea, so he grabs Buffy and they go off. And that's when Willow kind of notices that Oz is totally spaced out, and she's like, "Are you okay?" And he's like, "Huh? Yeah." He's, she's like, "Well, I didn't know because I knew you knew Teresa and blah blah blah." And he's like, "Well, I mean, I only hit it once, but fuck, I mean, she's dead now." And Willow's like, "You slept with her?" And he's like, "Only 3 times." She's like, "I can't believe you slept with her." And he said, "It was only 5 times." And then
and she was like, "I'm disgusted by this. I can't believe." And he was like, "Willow, it was only 15 times."
So basically she tries to talk him into like helping her that night, staying with her, hanging with her kind of thing. And he's just like, "Oh, I can't. I'm really busy." And then he turns around and he runs out of the library. Like I don't know why, but I found that really funny. He's like, "Oh, I can't. I'm really busy tonight." He's like, "I gotta go," and he runs out of the library.
Yeah, he jogs out of the library.
Yeah,
right after he's
that's a good way to
I can't. Right after he was like, I can't. Like, I play guitar in a band. Remember, I got groupies to fuck. Sorry.
Yeah, and I'm like, wait a minute, what? I would have immediately been like, oh my god, Oz is the werewolf. Oz is the werewolf. He says he's gonna be busy tonight, and he ran.
Right. I want to backtrack a little bit, talk about something you glossed over in this scene. So we already knew this, but the rest of the group finds out at this point that Xander remembers everything from when he was possessed by the hyena.
Yeah.
Back in the first episode.
And he told him he didn't remember anything.
Right. And everyone glosses over the fact that he remembers this. Mm-hmm. Like it's almost a joke. Like almost.
Yeah.
Like Buffy is kind of jokingly says, "Oh, I thought you said you didn't remember anything about that." Why are we glossing over the fact that Xander remembers
all of the murder?
All of the murdering, but also almost raping Buffy.
Right.
The attempted rape of Buffy.
She's like, "I thought you didn't remember that time that you literally raped me."
Right.
And he's like, "I didn't at first."
Right. It really irritated me that they played that for like a lighthearted, quick little laugh in this scene.
Well, we do know who's in charge of this show.
I know, but still.
So we cut to the school locker room where there are several men in there having gay orgies. And there's this strange music playing. It's like Indian flute music. And people are just spitting on each other. And I don't know what's happening in this scene. Do you know anything about what's happening here, James?
No. Nope. Nope. I've never. Nope. I've never partaken in anything like that in my real life.
No, no, okay.
No.
Well, anyway,
I don't
no.
know anything about that.
Xander goes into the locker room and startles Larry, who says Xander should wear a bell from now on. And I'm like, that ain't the only thing Xander should wear. He should also be wearing handcuffs, and people around him should probably be wearing a rape whistle. So
He should definitely be wearing one of those Hannibal Lecter masks.
yeah, more than likely, yes. But anyway, Xander just immediately starts like telling him, I know you got a secret, and just admit it, and blah 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 blah. And Larry's like, I'm gonna fuck your shit up. And for some reason, Xander's really brave all of a sudden with Larry. I'm like, normally Larry just beats him up and stuffs him in a locker or something. But anyway, come to find out, Larry is a homosexual.
Larry is gay. Gay as the
Oh,
day is long.
and at one point, Xander had said, just tell me. Look, I just want to help. So just tell me, because I know because I've been there. He's talking about the whole hyena thing. He's like, I understand because I'm there too, and I can help. So Larry reveals that he is in fact gay, and this completely creeps out Xander.
Mm-hmm.
Xander is a complete homophobe
Mm-hmm.
because this he is disgusted and scared and creeped out, like he thinks Larry's gonna like make a move on him or something. And Larry's just being a genuine guy, and he's like, wow, that's the first time I've ever said it out loud to anyone else, and he's having a moment here, like this is a big deal in Larry's life, and Xander's just being a dick
Mm-hmm. Yep.
and a
So
homophobic
we
dick.
so we know now that from this episode we know that Xander is a homophobe.
Yep.
And from the episodes that introduced Kendra, a very, very beautiful young woman,
Mm-hmm.
that Xander did not hit on once,
Mm-hmm.
that he's also racist.
Yeah, he is a card-carrying member of the Ku Klux Klan. He is a hardcore homophobe. He, I think later on in the Buffy verse, he began working at Fox News. I believe. I
He was like
believe.
an intern for Tucker Carlson.
Yes, yes. And even Tucker Carlson's like, damn, son, you are woo. You take the cake, my friend. Anyway, but yeah, Larry's having like a legit thing here. Like he's feeling all, relieved, and he's gotten this off his chest, and he's like, thanks, man. Like seriously, thanks. And Xander's like, no, Larry, I'm not. And he's like, it's cool, dude. It's cool. Your secret's safe with me. And Larry walks away. And of course, Xander's homophobia is now going in overdrive. We cut back to the library, and Buffy is just, when the camera cuts in, Buffy is just stabbing, like repeat, and she's just stabbing the shit out of Willow. There's fucking gore and blood spraying up. And she's covered, her face is covered. She's just like, you fucking bitch. And she's just stabbing the hell out of her. I don't know why. We never find out why. No, Buffy goes in to check on. Sorry. Buffy's checking on Willow to see if she's found anything. Looking for the profile here.
Yeah.
And Willow's like, no, because that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard of. I've just been sitting here playing Minesweeper because that's ridiculous. And no, she's like, well, there is one name that keeps getting spit out: aggressive behavior, run-ins with authority, etc. And Buffy's like, oh, fuck you, bitch, because she's talking about Buffy. And Willow's like, yo, I just calls them like I sees them. And so anyway, she's like, no, anyway, I'll keep looking. And they start talking about Oz, how he's been acting weird, and not wanting to stay with her that night and hang out, and that's when Buffy's like, well, maybe you need to make the first move. And Willow says, that won't make me a slut. And then Buffy says, I think your rep will remain intact. And I'm like, what is her rep exactly? Are you saying that she already is a slut, so no problem? Or like, what are we saying here, Buffaroni? And about that time, Xander shows up, and but Willow's got to go because Cordelia's wanting her to check out her history homework before class, and Willow says that probably means I have to do her history homework. And then here's when Xander starts being even more of a douche. He's being super homophobic still. He doesn't want to tell Buffy what the actual conversation was or anything. He just tells her, he's not the werewolf, so just drop it. She's like, okay, weirdo. And then he starts going on about how he's a little concerned that Willow and Cordelia seem to be hanging out a lot together recently, and yada yada. And they're talking about that. Well, basically Xander's talking, and Buffy realizes, she's like, wait a minute, on that news report, it didn't say anything about Teresa being mauled or, anything like that. That was just assumed. So we cut straight to the funeral home, which apparently is closed, but they can just walk right in. And Teresa's already laid out and all dressed and everything and in her casket. And Buffy just walks up and pulls down her little neck scarf, and it's vampire marks. And Buffy's like, look at that. I've solved the case. Episode over. But no.
Arg.
Yeah, arg. So they realize, well, it wasn't the werewolf after all. And they go over and they see the registry thing there that you sign when you go to her funeral. And she's like, wow, she had a lot of friends. And I'm like, well, she was a 17-year-old high school girl. I mean,
right.
It's not like she was a 63-year-old cat lady that lived in a trailer park next door to Tammy. But anyway, Buffy starts feeling kind of emo that she let Teresa get killed, and blah blah blah. And Xander's like, Buffy, you can't blame yourself for everybody that dies in Sunnydale. If it wasn't for you, people would be lined up 5 deep waiting to get buried. And he goes, oh, by the way, Teresa's a vampire. And fucking Buffy turns around and Teresa's climbing out of the coffin full vamp face. And so they have some fisticuffs, and she gets Teresa down and is on top of her, and she breaks off a little leg on a sign thing there and is getting ready to stake her. And Teresa says, Angel said, how did she say that? Angel sends his regards, or
Angel sends his love.
Yeah, sends his love. And Buffy's like, what? And then Teresa gets the upper hand and flips Buffy over, and she's on top of Buffy, and she's going to bite Buffy. And then Xander comes up behind and stakes the bitch with the remaining piece of the leg of the stand thing, which, by the way, is the first time Xander has ever staked a vampire all on his own.
Is it?
That's what it said in the shit I read. He staked his buddy in, what was that, the Welcome to the Hellmouth? But that's because somebody pushed the guy into the stake he was holding.
Okay.
Anyway, so he stakes the bitch. She's dust. And Buffy's really emo now all of a sudden again now, but she's like, Angel. And Xander helps her up, and she's like, he's not the guy you loved anymore. And they hug, and they have this weird, like, I don't know if I was reading into it or if this was supposed to be a thing. They have this weird moment where when they come apart, their faces are really close together, and I'm like, are they gonna fucking kiss? Oh. And then she just kind of drifts away, and then he says, oh no, my life's not too complicated. I'm like,
this is it.
What?
This is it. This is the scene. I said this. I was like, was like, what? What? No, your life's not complicated. Buffy has made it clear she is not interested in you. You've made it clear you're not interested in Willow, and Cordelia is all up on your junk. Why is it complicated? Like you're
But
not in some.
But they do have this weird fucking, just like 1 to 2 second long thing where it's almost like she was putting those vibes out. I don't know, man. It was weird. It was fucking weird.
No,
But I know what you're saying. I completely know what you're saying.
Yeah, like that whole
is clearly. Let's be honest. Well, I shouldn't say clearly because it's arguable. But Cordelia is probably the hottest chick on the show, and you know what I'm saying. And it's like he's not satisfied with that, you know.
Right.
And I'm like, what the fuck? She's the most popular girl in school. She's represented to be the most beautiful girl in school. You're with her. All she wants to do is suck your face all the time. And this is not enough for you. You fucking bag of... He is like 10 pounds of douche stuffed inside of a 5-pound bag.
Right. And this line irritated me so much for that reason, because your life's not complicated. It's not. It's not. You're with Cordelia. Buffy has made it clear she's not interested in you. You've made it clear you're not interested in Willow, who is now with Oz. There's nothing complicated here. And yet, for some reason, they want to make it seem like there's this weird, like, love quadrilateral happening. And there's just not.
No, and all it actually does is it makes Xander, the character of Xander, appear to be a fucking megalomaniac.
Yes.
You know, or like a sociopath, or just like he doesn't want this person, but by God, no one else can have him. He can have that person either. You know,
right?
It's very fucking. It's troubling. Let's just say that.
Yes.
So we cut to the woods, and Kane is in a molester van, a straight up child molestation van.
And we won't get into what he's doing in the molestation van. Let's just say
there are a couple of Polaroid cameras and a Bunsen burner,
and there's a reason we call it the molestation van.
Yes, he is actually, and this is so annoying to me. He's holding this little vial, melting some silver, which he is then making bullets from. Go ahead. I know you want to say something.
No. So this irritated me too. I don't know if it's for the same reasons it irritated you. For one, he's using the Bunsen burner. It's not, the flame's not even at its hottest. So for anyone who's not aware, the yellow part of the flame is not the hottest part of the flame. When the flame is blue, that's when the flame is. Listen, don't get me wrong, people. Don't go sticking your hands in the yellow flames. Okay?
Yellow fire. I'm like, this isn't hot. James said so.
Right. It's gonna hurt. Okay, you're gonna get hurt. Is it gonna smelt lead? No, it's not.
No, it's not silver that he's smelting.
Silver, right?
I meant to look up to see what the melting point of silver was.
936 degrees Celsius.
Okay, so a lot fucking higher than the Bunsen burner's putting out.
Yes, even if the Bunsen burner was being used correctly and it was only emitting the hottest flame, which is a blue flame, it still would not be hot enough to smelt silver into bullets.
And not just that, but he pours the molten silver into the cast and then immediately opens the cast, and it's a perfect silver bullet that he can touch with his bare hands.
Yes.
So I was like, the fuck?
Yes.
Anyway.
Keep going. I'm going to double check on my 936 degrees Celsius temperature. I'm pretty sure that's right, but I want to double check.
Okay. So, yeah, we get to leave the molester van. We do see a bag of free candy sitting there as we pan away from the molester van.
And you know what though? In all fairness, it's like Kit Kats and Almond Joys and Reese's peanut butter cups.
He'd probably get me.
Right. That's what I was going to say. Like, I'd get in the van. He'd be like, want an Almond Joy? And I'd be like, yeah, I feel like a nut. And then he'd be like, so do I.
He'd be like, so do I, little boy. And I'd be like, I ain't a pussy. If you're going to give me some free Kit Kats, I'm jumping in that fucking van.
Right.
Anyway.
Right.
We cut back to Oz's house. It's nighttime now. Oh boy, do I have some things to say about this little, not this whole scene, but this beginning part. He's sitting at his dining room table and he's got this box and he dumps the contents of this box out, which are some chains, some manacles, and a lock. These chains, manacles, and lock appear to be from the mid to late 1800s. And I'm like, who has those? And why do you have those? Why can't you just have a modern chain with a modern lock? Like, what did you go to like a thrift store and say, give me your oldest, shittiest chains, manacles, and lock? Like, who has these things?
You know, you raise a good point, but I guess I probably shouldn't have, but I kind of assumed that he probably got him from his aunt and uncle.
Well, yeah, that could be. Or he's into some shit we are not aware of yet.
Right.
Maybe
just
into his aunt's S&M dungeon and just grab what he could find.
Right. Just to quick backtrack real quick. I was wrong. The melting point of silver is 962 degrees Celsius. So I was 30 degrees. I was 30 degrees off.
Okay. So still pretty fucking high.
Yeah.
Like, and he was basically melting it with a big fucking lighter, which, no, that's not happening. Anyway, he starts to put these fucking manacles on, and then there's a knock at the door, and he's like, damn it, do I finish manacling up, or do I get the door?
You finish manacling up. That's what you do.
Then you get the door.
Then you get
all in full manacles and your 1800s lock with a skeleton key.
Right.
So anyway, he puts the shit down and he goes and opens the door and it's Willow and she just straight walks in his house. And
so real quick, something else about this. What was he going to chain himself to?
Right. I guess he was just going to chain his hands up and then just sit in the chair. And be like, well, now I've really hobbled the werewolf now. And, like, what if his parents were home or came home after he turned into the werewolf?
Right. Right. Like, why? Why? This is the worst possible
plan ever.
Yes. Like, the chains and the manacles, great. Like, you're going in the right direction here, Oz, my boy. But you need to put a little more thought into it, pal.
You're in the right neighborhood, but you're in the wrong aisle.
Right.
First of all, you need to get some more modern shit. And second of all, yeah, anyway. So she's just ranting and raving, and he's like, you got to get the fuck out of here. And she's like, listen, I want to go to fucking Bone Town with you. And he's like, I'm going to turn into a vicious creature in a second. And anyway,
I don't have time to dick you down right now.
I don't have time to go downtown right now. If you know what I'm saying, you little ginger. And then it hits him and he's like, oh, fuck. And he kind of doubles over and he's like, Willow, you've got to get out of here. And she's like, no, I'm not done fucking eating up screen time. And he falls behind the couch miraculously where you can't see him. And she's like, Oz, are you okay? What's happening? And of course, she slowly walks towards the couch and then pops up from behind the couch, full-blown werewolf. And she's like, I fucking knew it. And the werewolf's like, right? Anyway, she screams bloody murder and flies through the house and runs out the back door. And the wolf was hot on her heels. And
before you go on, let's because I know you want to talk about it, your love of werewolves. Let's talk about this transformation scene real quick.
Okay. Yeah, they do show a couple of shots. And I thought it was really well done when they when they show his face and head in the mid kind of transformation deal, I thought it was very well done.
And I know I'm a horror movie fan, so I've seen this movie. You're a werewolf fan, so I know you've seen this movie. It was very much giving me American Werewolf in London.
Oh yeah,
transformation vibes.
I wish it had been a little more horrifically painful. Like where he just is like, Jesus Christ, I'm on fire, or and he starts tearing his clothes off. Yeah.
But yeah, I think they got away with as much as they could for prime time.
Their budget, yeah.
Their budget and their time slot.
Yeah, and they showed hand and it's getting grotesquely big and hairy, and I was like, oh, that's good, that's good.
Right.
Because as we will talk in later seasons, they kind of change their werewolves, the way they look and kind of the way they move, and I'm not a fan of those later werewolves.
But yeah, the transformation scene gave me big American Werewolf in London vibes.
Yeah, it did.
Did.
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, as did the werewolf design. Honestly.
Yeah, it also gave me. Have you ever watched the Wolfman remake with Benicio del Toro?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It gave me those vibes too of the head and face portion.
Right.
The mid transformation portion. I thought, okay, cool. No complaints there. So yeah, he's hot on her heels, and she's running down the street, and she jumps over a privacy fence, and she struggles a little bit, which is realistic. She's got a skirt on and stuff, and she is a very weak little girl. And no, I'm just kidding. But she gets over the privacy fence just as the wolf gets there. And she lands on the ground on the other side, and it starts to come up, and she straight grabs like a big metal trash can and just smokes him in the face with it. It was straight up WWF.
It was. I did. I'm not gonna lie. I did let out a little bit of a yes when she.
Yeah, she smoked in the face.
Yeah. Also, if I was the werewolf, I would have been like, nah, fuck it. It's not worth it.
Yeah, this chick is, wow, this is not worth, I'm hungry. I don't want to fight for my food. And then we cut to the road, and we see the molester van driving by, and it's Kane. And he hears a howl in the distance, and he's like, there you are. And then he wrecks the van into a pole and dies. We have nothing else with Kane. That's it. He wasn't wearing a seatbelt. He went face first to the windshield, and that was it.
Right. Nothing until the actor comes back in season 4 of Angel as Sarjan.
Right. Buffy, we cut to the library, and Buffy's coming in there, and Giles is putting together this high-powered rifle that's clearly a trank rifle because it's got the short, kind of wide barrel. But, I mean, it's legit, dude. He's snapping this bitch together. It's got a laser fucking sight on it and a fucking scope, and I don't know where he got this bitch from, but they are taking something the fuck out. And Buffy's like, sorry, I'm late. I had some unexpected slayage. And he's like, what? And she's like, Teresa was a vampire. Is a vampire? And she's like, was. And then Giles was like, oh, okay, well, fuck her. So they leave. And Willow, we cut back to Willow, who's still running for her life. She's in the woods now, running for her life. And the wolf is right behind her. And of course, she gets to a clearing, and what happens? She falls down and turns around, and she's facing the werewolf, and she's moving backwards on the ground, and the wolf is getting closer and snarling and growling and drooling. And this was a weird, I get where it goes to, but all of a sudden the wolf kind of stops, and it starts smelling the air and just leaves her and goes off. And she's like, the fuck? Okay, well, she gets up and bolts. And
did you happen to notice with your keen eye Um, after Willow falls, her clothes are muddy, and then in the subsequent shots, the dirt and mud keeps appearing and disappearing.
Yes. That happens a lot in shows.
Oh yeah.
Or if there's like an unbuttoned shirt, and then the next scene it's buttoned, and then the next scene it's unbuttoned again, and then the next scene it's buttoned again.
Well, literally in the scene you're about to get into, we have a similar instance to that. Because I'm telling you, since you pulled out that bus brats kids sign bullshit thing, I am watching these episodes with such a keen eye. Like, I'm not going to be usurped like that again, sir.
I wasn't bullshitting about that sign, though, was I?
No.
Bus brats talk. What?
Yep.
The fuck? And then the ashtrays just overflowing with cigarette butts in Angel's fucking apartment. Anyway, so they get the gun finished up, and they're like, let's go get this thing. And then they're like, wait, how do we find this thing? And right when they say that, Willow comes busting into the library, and she's like, it's Oz, it's Oz. And they're like, what's Oz? And she's like, the werewolf. Oz is the werewolf. And Buffy's like, all right, well, let's go kill him. And Willow's like, fuck yeah, let's go kill him. No, she's like, you can't kill him. And Buffy's like, don't worry, we're not going to hurt him. And Giles says there's enough phenobarbital in this thing to sink a small elephant. Should be enough for a large werewolf. And I'm like, okay, wait a minute. Wait a minute. If there's enough phenobarbital in that thing to drop an elephant, I'm pretty
probably
sure
going to
fucking kill Oz. Because he's like 4 feet fucking 8 and weighs like $1.05 with rocks in his pockets.
Right.
But anyway, we come back to the woods. Oh, sorry.
So hold on. This is what I was talking about. So in this scene, Giles's glasses keep appearing and disappearing from his face. Did you notice that?
No,
So if you're watching it, like when Willow comes in, Giles doesn't have his glasses. They're getting ready to leave. He doesn't have his glasses. Then it cuts to a shot from behind Giles. He's clearly wearing his glasses. And then it cuts to a shot where they're showing Giles from the front, no glasses. Back to behind, glasses. I was like,
when they were doing the coverage shots for the other actors, he just had the glasses on or whatever. And then when he was doing his scenes, he didn't. Nobody thought to. Those types of mistakes are made a lot, and I don't understand. Like, there should be like a person on, which there normally is a person on set, the continuity person, who's supposed to keep track of all that kind of shit. And whoever the continuity person was on this set failed.
Right. But also, wouldn't you think this would be a multi-camera show?
I think it's a 2-camera show, isn't it?
I really don't know. I mean, based on
it's a 2-camera show.
But like based on this, no. Because you would think because you would think there would be the camera getting the main shot, which would be the shot with Anthony Stewart's face in it, and Sarah and Willow, and then the coverage shot.
I think a lot of the shots on set or indoors are just single camera shots. I really do. It's cheaper.
Yeah. You're probably right.
Because if you have a multi-camera shot of the same scene, you have to set it up in such a way that neither camera sees the other camera, and that just takes more time and more money.
Yeah.
And they're probably shooting a whole bunch of dialogue scenes, and then they flip the shit for coverage shots, and then they do all those. I don't know. I'm just guessing. I'm no fucking.
No, I mean, you're probably right. It makes sense. That makes sense.
Okay, where did I leave off? Okay, yeah. So we go back to the woods, and we find out the wolf left Willow alone because it had smelled a big pile of fresh meat that Cain has left to bait the wolf, and he's hiding a little ways away in the brush with his double-barreled shotgun with a scope on it that is apparently loaded with these silver bullets he made. And he's got him in his sights, and he's getting ready to He's like, good boy, now play dead. And he just goes to pull the trigger when Buffy out of nowhere fucking karate kick in the face. And she gets him in the nose, which goes up into his brain and instantly fucking kills him.
He's just dead.
Yeah, he's just fucking dead. No, she
End of the episode.
Yeah. She grabs his gun and just the way she fucking like twirls and smashes the butt of this gun into his face, I'm like, he's dead. He will not survive that. She's a slayer, and
but
he's dead.
But we've talked about this before. Like Buffy 100% is like Peter Parker. Like she's pulling her punches when she's fighting normal people.
If I did a twirl with a double-barreled shotgun and a solid butted rifle and smoked somebody like across the face, they're at the very least unconscious for about 2 hours.
Oh, yeah.
This dude's only down for about, 30 to 45 seconds. But she dispatches him, and then the wolf runs over. And they immediately start thumb wrestling, her and the wolf. And it wins, kills her. Buffy's over.
So tune in next week when we start season 1, episode 1 of Tammy the Vampire Slayer.
Guest star Oz the werewolf. Anyway, so she's fighting with him, and then the wolf throws her at one point. The whole time they're fighting, Giles is trying to get a clear shot with the trank gun, and he can't get one. And then at one point, the wolf tosses him, and she slams into Willow and Giles, and they all fall down. And the wolf comes running towards them, and Willow gets up in time and grabs the fucking gun and shoots him right in the fucking... It looked kind of like the belly. Maybe it was the chest. I'm not sure. And apparently it's instantaneous reacting phenobarbital because he drops like a sack of shit like immediately.
Yeah, and, he stumbles back and drops.
Yeah. And about that time, douchebag child molester Kane's getting up. The cops are there. They're taking him in because he hadn't registered as a sex offender in Sunnydale County. So
he's been within 200 feet of minors numerous times.
He's in some serious shit. No, he says, no wonder this town's overrun with monsters. There's no one man enough to kill them. And Buffy says, I wouldn't be so sure about that. And she's got his gun, and she just Popeye fucking bends it like into a boomerang and tosses it at him.
And it's funny you mention that, and maybe you mention it because of this. After she Popeye bends it, she goes,
yeah, and she's got all of a sudden she has a corncob pipe.
Right.
Yeah, and a squinty eye, and she's like,
yeah, I was like, well, this is a weird directorial choice.
Right, but it worked for the scene. And and he's like, what the fuck? And she's like, yeah, don't let the door hit you in the ass on the way out of town. And he's like,
No, she says, why don't you let the door hit you in the ass on the way out of town?
And he's like, well, I'm not leaving, bitch. What do you think about that? And then he pulls out a dagger and fucking cuts Willow's throat. He's like, now watch her die. And then he runs away screaming. And he skips away. I'm sorry.
He skips away. And now we have a new big bad for the rest of the season.
Yep. Kane, the child molesting throat slasher / part-time werewolf hunter.
We're getting out of hand with big bads this season. We've got Spike and Drew. We've got Angel.
I think this is the 4th time Willow's died in this episode. Okay, so yeah, the blah blah blah. Willow goes over to the tranked wolf, and she's like, "Is he gonna be okay?" And Giles is like, "No, I'm afraid there's too much phenobarbital. He's definitely gonna fucking die. There's not enough Narcan in this county to do anything about it. So he's a goner." She's like, "Okay, fuck it," and they leave him there to die. No, he's like, "Yeah, he'll be fine. He'll be a little sore in the morning, but he'll be Oz." And we cut to school the next morning, and they're walking through the halls, or I should be more specific. Buffy and Xander are walking through the halls, talking. Xander's being his homophobic, douchey, fucking megalomaniac self, and talking about Oz, and he says, I can never look at him the same, and she's like, what? And and come to find out, he's talking about Larry. She's talking about Oz. Because he's
'Cause
such
he's-
a homophobe, he can never look at Larry the same.
I was gonna say, because he's still being like a homophobic douche canoe.
Yeah. And about that time,
It's like-
oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, if nothing else, like, dude, this is still the same Larry that has routinely kicked your ass, gay or not.
Yeah, he
Okay.
said that earlier. He's like, hey, maybe when I used to beat you up all the time, it was because I saw something in you that I didn't like in myself.
Right.
But yeah, so if anything, he should be like, huh, you got beat up by a gay guy repeatedly.
Right.
Like
Right.
daily.
That's what you should be upset about.
Right. You should go off camera and probably slash your wrists at this point. I'm just being honest.
Wow.
No, so about that time, Larry shows up and he's like, hey, Xander, I owe you, and, blah, blah, blah. And Xander's being all fucking doesn't want to be touched by him, because, he might give him the gay bug. And anyway, Larry kind of pats him on the shoulder and leaves, and Xander and Buffy go sit down at the table, and Xander's still being super homophobic and stupid and annoying. And then he goes into Oz, and he just doesn't like him, and like, what kind of future can she really have with him? First, there's obedience school and paper training. Then he'll always be out in the backyard burying their things. And Buffy's like, you are so fucking weird. I don't want to be your friend anymore. I want you to go away, Xander.
And that's the last we ever see of Nikki Brendan on the show.
I wish.
Right.
He's like, I don't know. I don't think she's safe with him. And if it were up to me, and Buffy cuts him off and says, Xander, it's not up to you. Now go kill yourself. He did. He killed himself for the third time in this episode. No. Then we cut to the final scene, and it's Willow and Oz. They're walking. They meet up outside, and she's like, are you okay? And he's like, well, Giles says everything will be cool. I just need to lock myself up, around the full moon, 3 days a month, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, well, for 3 days a month, I'm not all that fun to be around either. And he's like, ha, fuck you, I'm a werewolf. And she's they talk a little bit more, and I've got a clip here. Let's just play the rest of their, because I think this is pretty good.
I thought you would have told me.
I didn't know what to say. I mean, it's not every day you find out you're a werewolf. That's fairly freaksome. May take a couple of days getting used to.
Yeah, it's a complication.
So, maybe it'd be best if I just sort of,
What?
well, like, stayed out of your way for a while.
I don't know. I'm kind of okay with you being in my way.
So, she ends up deciding that she does not want to be around him anymore, and so she leaves. And long story short, they decide they're going to just continue, dating and getting to know each other and see where their relationship can go. And she's like, but no biting. And he's like, deal. And then she walks away, and then all of a sudden comes back on screen and kisses him, and then leaves again. And he says, a werewolf in love. And then Gur Arg. That's the end of the episode.
That is the end of the episode. Jeremy.
Yes.
Tell me, how many werewolf cousins are you going to give this episode?
11. I'm giving this 11 werewolf cousins.
Wow.
Yeah, I have to give it 11 because werewolves are my favorite thing.
Okay, but our scale only goes to 5.
Okay. I can't give it a 5, obviously. Let's be honest, it's not a 5 episode. But it's a good episode. And I love werewolves and werewolf lore. I love me some Oz. The relationship of Oz and Willow, really kicks off now. From here on, it really it ramps up,
Right.
And like everything's out on the table now, and yeah, it's there's a lot of good things in this episode. I will give it a solid. I'll give it a solid 4, because I don't see any. There were no egregious like groan-inducing, like other than Xander's bullshit. But that's in every fucking episode that Xander's in.
Right.
So
right.
you just come to expect that. Yeah, I don't really have any complaints. Little things, but nothing worth bringing up. So yeah, I'm gonna give it a solid 4. James.
Yes, sir.
How many trash cans to the fucking face are you going to give this episode?
I am going to give this episode 4 trash cans to the face.
Okay.
Just much like yourself, like it's not a 5 episode. We've experienced a 5 episode.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was our first 5, wasn't it?
As best as I can recall, it was our first 5.
We've experienced a 5 episode. We talked about it in the episode prior to that and that episode. Like there's episodes that are good, like they're really good episodes. Like this one, there's virtually nothing wrong with it. We just can't kick it up to that 5 level because it's not. There's just something, even though you can't put your finger on it, missing that makes it a 5 episode.
Right.
And this is one of those episodes. It's a solid episode. The writing is outstanding. The acting is outstanding. The story is good. It's a really good episode. It's not a 5. It's not a 5.
Right.
It's a solid 4. It definitely goes on the list of episodes I would show people who've never seen Buffy before.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, with the exception of the atrocity that continues to be Xander Lavelle Harris, yeah, there's nothing wrong with this episode. It's a really good episode.
Yep.
So
I agree.
all right.
How about episode, everybody? We enjoyed.
How about a little monsterology?
Oh, okay. I think I know where we're gonna go with this one.
Well, we already talked about some stuff that I wanted to talk about while we were going over the episode, so I didn't really get into it in the monsterology. Obviously, werewolves. Giles says it right in this episode. He says werewolves. It's a classic werewolf lore. It's right up there with vampire lore. It's unclear exactly when and where the first werewolf legends originated.
Easy for you to say.
Easy for me to say. But some scholars do debate and believe that the werewolf made its debut in the Epic of Gilgamesh, which is, for anyone unfamiliar, it's like the oldest known Western prose. And there's a part in it where our main character, Gilgamesh, jilts a potential lover because she had turned her previous lover into a wolf. So there's some debate among scholars as to whether or not that constitutes the first, the origin of werewolf mythology. Outside of that, there's an early appearance of werewolves, in a sense, in Greek mythology with the legend of Lycan. According to that story, Lycian was the son of Pelescus, who angered Zeus when he served Zeus a meal made from the remains of a sacrificed boy. And as punishment, the angry Zeus turned Lycian and his sons into wolves. There's also werewolf stories in early Nordic folklore. The Saga of Volsungs. It's the story of a father and son who discover wolf pelts that have the power to turn people into wolves for a period of time. And the father and son put on the pelts and are turned into wolves and go on a killing rampage throughout the forest.
And they skip the whole time they're running through the forest.
So those are some of the earliest known instances of werewolf lore in history. So yeah, it's as old, if not older, than vampire lore. As many stories as vampires have been told over the years, there's probably an equal number of werewolf stories. Like we talked about while we were going over the episode, um, we both seem to feel like there was a lot of influence in the werewolf design and the transformation sequences of from An American Werewolf in London, which is a phenomenal werewolf movie. If no one's seen it, go see it. It was
One of the very best.
John Landis directed it. 1982,
182, somewhere in there.
It's a great movie. There was a sequel, not nearly as good. Not nearly as good.
No John Landis, nothing to do with the it's horrible.
Well, it does. It's the daughter of the characters.
It does continue the lore, but
right.
Other than the basic overall lore, it's hot trash.
So yeah, and obviously, you mentioned the Benicio del Toro remake of the Wolfman, the original starring Lon Chaney?
Lon Chaney Jr.
Lon Chaney Jr. as the Wolfman. A great Universal monster flick.
Lon Chaney. One of my all-time favorites, if I can just throw a recommendation out there.
Yeah.
And I believe it was 1987. There was a very brief television series on the USA Network called simply Werewolf. It was almost identical to the Bill Bixby Incredible Hulk show, except he was a werewolf. And it is one of my all-time favorite television shows. Very difficult to find these days. They've never released it on DVD or Blu. No, I take that back. They've just recently released it in a French version on DVD. But yeah, it's just called Werewolf. It was one of Chuck Connor's last projects he ever did before dying. He was the
Rifleman.
Yeah, he was the evil werewolf Scorzini. And Jawbone is actually in it. Jawbone, it plays one of the head vampires. I'm sorry, head werewolves.
Werewolves.
And but it's an excellent show.
Yeah, there's a ton of great vampire media or werewolf media out there. One of my favorites, and you'll probably disagree with me on this. I love the movie Wolf with Jack Nicholson and Michelle Pfeiffer.
Fuck yeah, dude. Oh yeah. That's a classic, my friend.
Yeah. That's probably one of my favorites.
He and what's his face?
James Spader.
Yeah, James Spader. He pisses. I love when he pisses on James Spader's shoe, and it's a fantastic movie.
You've got Silver Bullet.
One of my top 3 all-time favorites.
The original Silver Bullet. Once you get into the sequels.
There were I didn't even know there were sequels.
Yeah.
I'm glad I never knew about that because, I mean, the Corey Haim and fucking Crazy Man. But yeah, Uncle Red. Yeah, that was. Yeah. It was also a fantastic. It's a Stephen King book.
Right.
It was a fantastic book.
And you know what I was actually thinking of sequels wise was The Howling, not Silver Bullet.
Oh yeah, The Howling. Like the first 2 Howlings were pretty decent, and then it went off the reservation.
Yeah, but there's a ton of great vampire media out there. Werewolf media out there. We could probably do an entire 2 episodes just on movies and television shows of really
I will say, if you enjoy vampires and or werewolves, fucking avoid the Twilight series. It's so dumb. There's nothing redeemable about any of that shit. I sparkle in the sun. Sorry.
All right. Moving on, our body count this week is 1.
136. Oh, just one?
Just one.
Okay.
Just poor Teresa. Well, I
That's
say
actually
one,
two. She's
but
actually died twice.
she died twice, so maybe two. No, it's one. If we just go by body count, it's one. She died twice, but it was the same body.
One body and then one pile of dust.
A little behind the scenes, Marty Noxon, who, as we all know, was a writer on Buffy, wrote some of the best episodes of the show.
Mm-hmm.
Has stated that this episode is viewed as the first part of what the writers called the Willow and Oz trilogy, followed by Wild at Heart and New Moon Rising.
Yeah.
Rob Des Hotel.
Are those the ones where they meet the crazy bitch?
I believe so. Yes.
Yeah.
Veruca.
Didn't care for him.
Yeah.
That's the ones in particular that I'm talking about, where they've changed the way the wolves look, the way they act, the way they move, and it's just man.
Rob Des Hotel, one of the writers on this episode, has stated that Phases is his favorite episode of the 5 that he and his writing partner wrote. He said Oz just has an ability to pinpoint what's going on and make it sound absurd.
I love the way he's written, and I love the way Seth Green acts it.
Phases pulled in an audience of 4.9 million households on its original airing. Yeah.
Wow.
Our bras
have just been taken off.
Our bronze band this week was Lotion.
Oh. Do they put it on the skin, or do they get the hose again?
Our music for this week's episode includes Blind for Now, performed by Lotion, from the album Nobody's Cool, released on Spin Art Revolution Records in 1996.
Well, they weren't cool if you saw them up on stage.
As well as Meeting Kane, Werewolf Crashed Party, Kane Prepares, and The Chase, as composed by series composers Sean Clement and Sean Murray. Goof 'em Ups and Oopsies, we already went over while we were reviewing the episode. And that's all I have. Do you have any final thoughts, Mr. Jeremy?
No, just super happy that I finally got to my first werewolf episode. It only took us, what did we say? This was the 28th episode?
This is the 26th. Hold on. Give me 1 second. The 27th. It's the 27th episode of the series. Yep.
Okay, well, it only took us 27 episodes to get to
werewolves. To get to a staple of monster lore.
Yeah, we had to have a praying mantis lady before we could have a werewolf. I don't understand that.
Although I will say to their credit, like, it would have been so easy just to fill these episodes with established,
which is exactly what I would have done.
Right.
That's what people want to see. Come on now. Nobody wants to see a praying mantis teacher. That's stupid.
Well, I don't know. I think
we destroyed that episode. It was so dumb.
We did, but at the same time, I do think some of the better episodes are ones where they lean on their own mythology that they've created, and not so much,
I think it's 50-50.
The lore that's out there. So, but
thanks for playing. We have some lovely parting gifts for you in the back. No, anyway, James.
Yes, sir.
Can people still find us on the interwebs?
They can. They can find us. They can find us at BuffyRevisited.com, which will give them a series of links. One of those links will be to our Twitter. Another one would be to our Facebook. Another one would be to our YouTube, where if you only listen to the podcast, you might want to go check it out and see the video version. And a link to our email address, which is buffyrevisited@gmail.com. And any of those places, people can reach out to us, talk about the podcast in general, Buffy in general, Angel in general, the episode specifically, or any episode specifically, or the shows overall. We'd love to hear from people.
Absolutely. Is our OnlyFans link on there too?
Not yet.
Not
I'm
yet?
waiting. I'm waiting until we have. So right now we've only got 3 videos to offer people. I'm waiting till we're up to 6.
Okay.
And that way we can hit the ground running with the subscriber base.
Okay.
They have a lot of content to indulge in right off the bat. And then of course once that is up and running, we will be uploading new videos to OnlyFans 3 to 4 times a week.
And will it involve nipple clamps?
Nipple clamps,
Okay.
cock rings.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Butt plugs. Butt plugs.
Butt plugs. Garlicky
Yes.
nipples.
Garlicky nipples.
Lots of edging. Lots of edging.
Okay.
You know, something I wanted to mention at the top of the episode and I forgot. This past week, Rolling Stone released their list of the 100 greatest TV shows of all time, and Buffy made the list. Why don't you tell me, Jeremy, where do you think Buffy placed on that list?
Wow. We're all time we're talking here?
100 greatest
Probably-
television shows of all time.
Probably somewhere in the 90s, I'm going to assume. Like, I'm going to say 92.
73.
Oh, okay. Little higher up than I expected.
Far lower than I think it should be.
Oh,
But
yeah.
but that's me.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And of course, Highlander was ranked number 1.
Highlander was number 1 because it's the best show ever made.
Thank you.
And if there wasn't already a wonderfully phenomenal podcast out there about Highlander,
that has apparently been abandoned.
That is what we would be talking about every week instead of Buffy. Because as much as we both love Buffy and Angel, we are tenfold Highlander fans.
And we would have like 5-hour-long podcasts.
We would. You thought the initial run of episodes for Revisited were long. Wait till you hear us get going about Highlander.
Yeah, it'll never fucking end. Yeah,
right.
I'll fill up an SD card on one podcast.
Right. So, but yeah, I read that earlier today in an article and wanted to share that. So that's all I have.
All right. Well, I don't have anything else. So I will just say that I would like to thank everyone for joining us this week and look forward to you joining us next week for Season 2, Episode 16, Bewitched, Bothered, and Bewildered. It's clearly about some type of landscaping business.
Landscaping, 100% landscaping.
All right. Well, with all that being said, we both look forward to seeing you all next week. I have been one of your hosts. I'm Jeremy.
I'm your other host, James.
Ta-ta.